Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. I'm your normal co-host, but current host, Pascal Robert. Jason Miles, as well as Gene Boston, are away at a special location for a wedding of a very, very good friend of the show, and we will be seeing them again next week. If you can, like, subscribe, and hit the bell. That helps us in the algorithm and our notifications for the program in terms of new shows. We are constantly adding new material, new streams, and coming up with new ideas. Jason recently came up with a new show on pop culture that will be airing on certain Fridays. We still have our sports show on Mondays. And of course, my Mau Mau Hour will be hosted next Wednesday, will be the last Wednesday of the month, so we constantly have a variety of shows coming forward that we would love you to pay attention to and check out. So check out our shows. Go to This Is Revolution podcast. You want to check out our merchandise as well. Check out old streams. Realize that we are an audio podcast as well. The show started as an audio podcast at first, so we have a lot of back catalog of our audio material. And the major news that we should remember is that we have a live show October 23rd at the Telegram Ballroom. TIR gives them an argument, and of course, Reckoning, a left media powerhouse and presentation. Tickets are now on sale. It's going to be Ben Burgess. It's going to be the guys from Left Reckoning, and Kasparian. It's going to be Vaughn. It's going to be Daniel Besner. It's going to be a pretty good time. So I suggest you guys definitely check that out. I think you'll enjoy it as well. Our producer du jour for today, as always, is the wonderful, the great, and the indomitable M. Toussaint.
Hello, hello, hello. Just so you know, we don't have the soundboard today because the soundboard is in Jason's pocket.
The soundboard goes where Jason goes.
It does. It absolutely does. I was like, hey, something's missing. That's what's missing.
Yes, the
All right.
soundboard. How are you doing, M. Toussaint?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm excited about today's show. We're going to talk about coats.
I'm very excited about today's show. For those who do not know, today's show is going to be a show with guests from across the pond in Europe who invited us on their program before, who became friends of our program and have had us on the show several times. They are the gentlemen from 99 ZU EINS, the German radio program and podcast, who are such stewards of all things politics that we become friends in our ability to present left or alternative left progressive news coverage of global events to the world through our various streaming platforms. And we've come together on several occasions. And we're going to talk about Germany and Europe in the wake of many transformative effects going on over there, whether it be the Ukraine, the post Angela Merkel election, and things of that nature. So I look forward to having M2 Son. And of course, we have one more guest with us who's going to be helping through the questions. Stefan Bertrand Lee, our man in England.
Hello, hello, hello.
Clap,
Stefan,
clap, clap.
super
Good to see
soldier
you.
that you are.
Always good to see you,
Do
my
you, do
little
you know
pony.
what do you know what ZU EINS is?
Do I know where ZU EINS is?
No, what is a ZU EIN?
I knew
What
at
is
one
a
time.
ZU EINS? Well, you want us to rush right into just bringing in our guests so they can tell us?
No, I hope to keep them all screaming frustration.
I would rather not do that because they're such wonderful gentlemen. Why don't we welcome all the way from Germany, Deutschland, the two hosts of 99 ZU EINS, Nadim and Daniel, from that great radio program to our program.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa
Hello,
alaikum
everyone.
salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hello. It's an honor to be here. Nice to be back.
Yeah,
Nice to be back as well.
I love it to be
Nadim,
among friends, so
Daniel,
it's cool.
we are amongst friends, we are amongst comrades, we are amongst allies here. We every time you guys come on our show, It's always a good time, and every time we go on your show, it's always a good time as well.
Yes.
And we created some rip roaring episodes over the 2-3 years that we've been working together. So I look forward to doing that. So first of all, how are you guys' weekend going? Before we get directly to the questions, contrary to the norm, I'm going to ask you some normal life questions. How are things going? Because I know we had some difficulties in the pre-show situation in terms of logistics.
Yeah, Germany is keeping warm. We were supposed to be in the studio, but I was on my way, and suddenly I realized I'm in the middle of a marathon that basically surrounds me, and I can't go back to the studio. And Daniel doesn't have keys to the studio, so he also needed to run back to his home. So we are all pretty warm now. Me from anger, Daniel from running.
Yeah, it's good
Germans
because we
from
cannot heat the flats
running.
for shit anymore. It's too expensive.
Well, we have a lot of questions in that area as well in terms of what you guys are facing over there in Germany. But
I mean, it shows that they're real Germans because despite various issues, they were still 20 to 40 minutes early.
there you go.
Absolutely.
True that. Yeah.
Precision.
Revolutionary
20
discipline.
Yeah,
Revolutionary
revolutionary discipline. There you go. That's what it is. Yes.
Or is it really technocracy? I say it's technocracy.
Revolutionary discipline.
Potato.
Well, for you guys, it's revolutionary discipline. When the state does it, it might be something else.
Yes.
Well, listen, let's go straight to the questions and let's see what we can get you guys to tell us about what's happening in Germany. So, Stefan wanted to ask, what is a ZU EINS?
It's a very small animal. It's just kidding. No, actually, the correct translation would be 99 to 1. So it's a ratio, and it's the ratio of those who have and those who haven't. And that was basically like I didn't even remember Occupy, but probably was back somewhere in our head when we came up with the name. So it's like the distribution of wealth and the actual people, like the ratio, like 1% has more than the rest of the 99, and it's up to us to radicalize the 99 to go
So
to
it's
the
like
one.
saying the 99%.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, it's placed back to that, the 1%, the 99%. But it's also like, it's not only in this populist, well, maybe it is in this populist genre, I would say, where it's about saying that, we, the proletariat, the people that are basically producing this wealth that all our nations enjoy, we are not the benefiters from it, right? So, and that's basically our program. And that's very important. It's 99 to 1. So the 1 is written as a word, as we and not as a number. Many people do that wrong. They write 99 zu 1, and we get very angry
Will they
about
learn?
that. Please
When will
don't
they
do that.
learn?
Yes.
What is, you guys, it's interesting that you bring this up and we're leading off with this question, but one of the questions I want to ask you is that how popular is left political discourse and thought in Germany today with such a kind of, the supposition that the liberal, technocratic, democratic, or the liberal elites have been successful, which I think is questionable. How popular? What is the appetite for left politics in Germany?
You want to
Should I
go,
start?
or should I? Yeah, as you wish.
Okay. This is actually a very, very good question. It's also a little bit nuanced to answer that properly, because on the one hand, on the positive side, I do see an uprising in actual left in the public, like mainly in the internet, like social media. There are some social revolutionary radicals going about, but this is like not representative of society as a whole. Actually, on the other hand, and this is very dismal, I would say that the reaction to the war in the Ukraine has shown us time and time again that in Germany we have the problem that a lot of people are calling themselves left-wing when they are liberals at best and are in a very, very strong state idealistic, system idealistic set of a frame of mind, to the point where they would rather defend the system from criticism from the actual left than be open to debate. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like, for example, in Germany, I would say people call themselves left. When you ask a German person, why do they consider themselves left-leaning, they would probably say something liberal, anti-racist. So that's the narratives that you get. So I'm against Nazis. And I'm like, yeah, great. So was my grandma. Well, one of them, the other not. But she was definitely not left-leaning. So not everybody who hates Nazis is a lefty. So but still, that's a little bit the narrative. That this is a little bit simplistic, but I think as a short answer, I would say we have a lot of people who misinterpret like a liberal bourgeois anti-fascism with actual left-leaning politics, and they are currently very, very bitter and toxic.
Daniel, I have to say it again for the people in the back. There are a lot of people who are confusing liberal bourgeois anti-fascist politics for a left project.
Yes. Without ever striving for an actual system change, and without the realization that fascism is a bourgeois way of governing people. So they still think that fascism would be like a rupture in the power dynamic, which it's not. But that epiphany, it's just rarely seen with people.
It's a consequence of the bourgeois national thought in bad times. That's what fascism is.
Listen, you guys. I'm glad you guys are going right along. I'd like M2 Start and Stefan to jump in, because we've had a debate in a couple of our chats lately with Jean Bajlan about, is it appropriate to use the term fascism in terms of the current political context in the United States with the reactionary right? I'd like to hear people's opinions. M2 Start, what are your thoughts? Do you think fascism is overused in the American context? And Stefan, what do you think? Do you think it's a weak political framing?
Go ahead, Stefan. Okay, I'll go.
Definitely. Talking about
that again,
it's obviously like useless politics, right? Like, the guy is a figure of he's meant to be he's structurally not leading a political movement and has no interest in leading a political movement, right? His politics is used as kind of like an avenue for himself to do kind of almost random kind of political acts, so most of which are right wing, but without any particular allegiance to any kind of systemic ideology. And so, I think kind of US, like, to discuss fascism in the United States and the liberal media in the US means to discuss Trump. And because it revolves around Trump, the fascist discourse then is kind of inherently useless, because it uses this person who's clearly not a fascist to orientate the whole thing around it.
Daniel, Nadim, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
May I just say something that, is painfully obvious, but ask someone who claims that Trump or, the far-right militias in the US are fascist. Ask them, what is fascism? And you will not get an answer that makes any sense.
Something racist.
You will not. It's also. To be fair, it's not something that is very simple to just explain, especially because of all these kind of propaganda campaigns that have been going on around this, and also the implicit and explicit campaign to divorce fascism from bourgeois democracy, to put it as something different, right? This is the antidote to bourgeois democracy. That's why we as Democrats, we have to fight it. And that's simply put, if you look at the history, it's not the case. Even if you look at the intellectual basis for that, go to our channel, watch the interview with Ishai Landa on the liberal foundations of fascist thoughts. It's all in there. It's connected to this. And they're all the more important to disconnect yourself from it in times where you can afford to. But and that can always come back. I do think that some people might, have tendencies in this direction. Is there a movement that we can call like a fascist danger in the US? I don't think so. In Germany, I would say no. I don't see that.
Let me ask
Can
you a
I-
question.
Can I
Go ahead,
add
go on.
something to it?
Please,
Just
go ahead.
that. There's also, to me, it's like the huge question: why are you using the term fascism? Like, why? Why is that term even necessary? It's because it is immediately a moral outrage. If you declare something fascist, everybody wants to be like on the good side. It's like, oh no, I don't want to be that. So it's a war cry, nothing but. And to me, it also has like the side effect that it underplays the lethality of the neoliberal program. So we don't need the term fascism to talk about how deadly neoliberal capitalism is. And for example, people like in Europe, like Macron or that fucker in Greece, Mitsotakis, they're starting to like really beat people to a pulp in the street for simply demanding like living wages and stuff like that. You don't need to call them fascists. They're deadly bastards in any which way. People are starting to are going to start freezing in the streets in this winter if things go ahead as they are now. It still does not make it necessary to call it fascism. Capitalism is just as deadly.
Well, let me ask you a
Well, that's
question.
Go ahead. I'm Toussaint, please.
Thanks. So there's always this idea that Trump is not a fascist. He's not this. He's not even a Republican. He's an opportunist. And there's always this idea that we have to wait until the next Trump comes, the smarter Trump, the one that knows what they're doing, the one that has an ideology. Do you think that would be when fascism comes to the, I don't know how you can know.
I would say first, Trump is not that stupid, actually. If you look
I
at
agree.
what he's doing, how he's communicating, and I mean, he is still quite relevant. And you guys are probably seeing him facing off with the other gerontocrat in the White House in the next 1 or 2 years. He's not that stupid. All right, he's very vulgar. This is part of it's part of his game. He's extremely funny. Objectively, I would say he makes good jokes. I would say as soon as you try to attach a label like fascism to Trump, or may it be the next Trump that is much more, I don't know, much more gentleman-like, let's say, ultimately what the discourse is trying to do is force a moral condemnation, right? And we as Marxists, we as materialists on the left, we should try to, when analyzing situations at least, try to refrain from these kind of moral condemnations. The morals don't get us anywhere because everybody has his morals. Probably Stefan has different ones than I do, than Daniel does, than Pascal does, than Toussaint does, right? So we should analyze the situation as it is. Was the stuff that Trump did in his 4 years in any way fascist? I'm sorry, but I would say totally not. There were presidents before, even the president right before him, that did much worse stuff, both to their population as well as to the population outside of the country. So, right, if you try to look at this with a cooler mindset, I say, then you don't need these terms unless it really becomes fascist, unless it really becomes a movement to restore the power of the state in the face of a waning democracy, of a waning cohesion inside of the society, where you need this powerful state, the strong man, and the strong police on the streets to keep everything in check. That is not. I don't think that's out of the question. It can still happen, but I don't think that's what we're seeing yet.
There's lots of American politicians who are trying to be Trump right now, up into including like taking up his cadence in how he speaks and so on. But I don't think you should really be worried about kind of the next Trump that comes along with a coherent project and a coherent ideology and so on, who then will be so much better than Trump. Because all these guys, people aren't interested in these second-rate Trumps who are less charismatic, who are less funny and so on. And instead they have like solid politics. Because that's not what voters want, Like that's like a kind of coherent ideological project is not what attracts people to vote for a presidential candidate in the United States. And so, yeah, I don't think it's we should be worrying about kind of a guy coming along with this thing who's then going to do like what Trump did. I think the only one person who can do Trump is Trump.
Also, I mean, you should, when talking about fascism, again, what that is, you have to realize this is not just some guy with an idea coming into a parliament and changing everything around, right? Fascism there is a time where fascism is in the interest of the nation and of the national capitals, and we are not there yet. This is not in their interest. And even in that time, even in the Second World War, there were hell of a lot of capitalists and powerful people who were against that takeover, right? But okay, they had enough power and enough deprivation also in the streets. They just came out of a crisis. They had a world war that they just lost, and the whole feeling of being subjugated by the rest of the world, with a kind of also bad treaties for them in their eyes at least, and then the national defense mode in their head just kept spinning. It was not Hitler that just convinced them to be Nazis, right? Keep that in mind.
Right,
he maybe geared some of that energy in some direction, for sure, and I think he had a pivotal moment. But this idea of the nation that we have to defend, this idea of the strong state that we need in order to defend this nation, that was there before, and that's part again of bourgeois democracy. That's inside there.
Do you think that a fascist movement? Stefan, do you want to go ahead?
And just to say briefly, in January 2021, like there was, when Trump was trying to like hold on to his position despite losing the presidency, American capital basically threatened a capital strike, like a full-blown total capital strike, where basically Trump was informed by US capital that we're not going to support this. And this was one of the key factors in stopping it. So yeah, I think that indicates how kind of far we're away from fascism in terms of just that the capital class doesn't have any interest in it at the moment.
The question I want to ask you is that, and we're going to move on from it. A lot of people say whether it's fascism or not doesn't matter because it's still bad. And the question I was going to ask you is that is fascism innately culturalist and masculinist?
I think I wouldn't. I mean, in the past, maybe yes, they have been. If you look at it empirically, I think you can say yes. And I don't know. Look at Italy, look at Germany, look at other fascist movements in Britain. This Mosley guy and people like that, right? It was like that. I'm not so sure. It would be an interesting question whether it has to be like that. It is more about reestablishing an order that has been lost. And if you are in a society in which, like a society that we are nearing today, to be honest, in which, for example, the gender disparity closes more and more, not completely, but it closes compared to, I don't know, 100 years ago. It might very well be that the female, the women, or even queer, trans people, etc., will be integrated into this fascist project. I don't think this is completely out of the question. I don't have any theoretical argument why it would be.
But so we do agree, though, that it's always a kind of reactionary project. In other words,
Yes.
By definition, fascism is a project of reaction, of an attempt to take society back to what is perceived as the glory days, or what is believed to be the national lore, if you will.
At least in the how can I say, in the mythos of their ideology, they do that. Whether this is like also the how can I say, the actual motivation, I would be even more blunt. Nadim can counter me if he thinks it's different. But I think it's mostly about consolidating the power ratio that is. So it is like when you go back in Germany, because that's the one fascism where I'm rather savvy about. So in 30th of January 1933, you had a bourgeois government official, Freiherr von Papen, was after the election, he needed to designate someone to build the new government. And he opted for a minority government run by him. Actually, he disliked Hitler to a very, very big extent. And he still put him in charge because the alternative would have been a left-wing majority or a left-wing coalition. So I would totally agree with the fact that it's always reactionary. And they are just using the narratives of the old glory days, but in the end, it's just like it's the ultimate putting the foot down for the bourgeoisie. Okay, we're not gonna let go of the system at any cost. Here we are, bum. And this is actually a little bit the thing that we need to watch out for, because while I would refrain from using the term fascism for everything that I sometimes intensely dislike. I would still say that the mechanisms that brought us to fascism in the first half of the 20th century, they are already at work right now. So there are definitely similar mechanisms that you can objectively observe right now and say, okay, here we got an increase in repression. Here we got this, here we got that. So that doesn't mean that the road to fascism is not very, very, how can I say, does not teach us a lot about how capitalism reacts in a crisis.
Right. Interesting. We've advanced.
One interesting thing about Ukraine. One interesting thing about Ukraine is that basically all.
What are you gonna say? Are you trying to
just Stefan, what's interesting about Ukraine? Please let me know. That might be a nice segue to talking
is that
about
basically all the women that you see are in position are right sector.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
The Nazis and fascists.
I mean, you see it
than the state is.
You know what I was thinking about when this question was asked. I mean, obviously, we can also talk about the racial dimension. I think fascism, in some way, needs this kind of enemy that has has found some kind of footing in our society and is responsible for the rot at it that we need to purge. I think it is there, but whether this needs to be, weak women, or whether it needs to be, I don't know, the foreigners, or in this case, the Jews. If you look at other countries that are highly militarized and, also display fascist structures, like, for example, Israel, right? You have a very, very strong admiration for the woman in the military, right? This is even celebrated to an extent where it gets perverse, right? Where I don't know, women display themselves in with nudes, etc., having their gun on, or maybe just their military boots. So basically, the being a military officer, being a military, like being a soldier, is being made sexy, is something to aspire to. I don't. That's why I would say, I don't think these things necessarily exclude each other, theoretically speaking. I think that's possible to integrate.
Just for shits and giggles, but I like to point out, to me, it's the movie about our times right now, and it's Starship Troopers by Paul Verhoeven. And Paul Verhoeven was perfectly capable of displaying an immensely uber-militarized fascist society that was built on racial and gender equality. That didn't matter for the society in the movie. Like you even have like common showers between men and women. Mm-hmm. So that's not an issue. It's still a violent fascist society of exploitation. So, and I think he was onto something there. Of course, it's just a movie, but I think it is a clever display of the diversity of fascism.
Wow. Definitely an interesting point. So I wanted to ask you guys a question about some politics in your neck of the woods in Germany as well. Since December, it's been marked the end of the 16-year reign of Angela Merkel as Chancellor of Germany. Can either of you discuss what the legacy of Merkel is that she's leaving behind?
You want to, or should I?
Maybe you start. I think it's a tough one. The legacy. Because I have the feeling that it is a different show right now. It's not, because Merkel always had this like she even had the nickname Mutti, like mother, like by the media. She was called Mutti. And I do think that she was, by all, how can I say, by all objections that I have to her politics, she was still perceived, and I would kind of agree, as authentic. Like, she really believes what she says. She didn't come across as someone who was like a huge manipulator, so to say. And with the current government that we have, it's much more. It doesn't have one strong person in the center, where you can say it's Father Schlotz or whoever it is. So because you have a lot of, it is a big it is a larger coalition. It's a coalition of 3 parties this time, not just 2. And it's also not so clear that the Christian Democrats are in the lead. Well, they're even out of this government. So it's a government of Social Democrats, the Green Party, and the Liberals, the Freie Demokratische Partei. So they're the neoliberals, so to say. And it is much more of a pardon the word, like cockfight going on also between those factions. So there is not like this. What we had Mother Merkel. And everything that she said, maybe she had opposition, but it was still clear that the government itself was represented by her. And now I would say it's much more clustered into the individuals in their own resource. And also, like, the attacks on the people are much more focused on the individual resource right now. That's the feeling that I have. So we are out of a nation's mother, I'd say.
I mean, when you talk about, I don't agree with some of the things you just said. So if you look at the legacy in terms of, okay, what has been her material legacy, right? And then you look at, I don't know, the couple of big crises she managed. We have, the refugee crisis that she managed.
So-called.
Yeah, that she managed in a way that basically turned Europe into a cage where people are drowning in front of their walls. We have the whole thing with the Querdenker, which is the Corona, the COVID, and the COVID deniers, let's say, where she also basically managed that with bravura. I would say what is her legacy is that the idea that is really an idea that our head of state is supposed to be this calm, very non-eccentric, very not special kind of person that is just a good manager of things for the nation as a whole. Right. So, and that's basically what she did. So no one saw Merkel just as another CDU politician. So the fact that she was the head of the Christian Democrats kind of waned into the background, and she was exactly this kind of Mutti Merkel, like this person that is always there and that kind of manages very calmly. Though we made a lot of jokes about she would never put her foot down on anything. At least not in public. She would never lose her temper. In the background, she would have heads rolling. There would be like she. That's how she established her reign in the very beginning, where she just all the competition that she had in the party, she just removed them. So she's quite vicious there. But to the front, she never allowed to get drawn into any kind of conflict over her person, over her statements, and that she made very clever, I think. And where I disagree with you, Daniel, I think that is exactly the continuation that we see now. I think Olaf Scholz is trying to copy this 100%.
Okay, yeah, I give you that.
He's trying to do it exactly the same way. He's trying to be completely, in the background. I'm not so important. Maybe I'm doing a little bit of father dad jokes, basically, language jokes, but that's it. And the reason why this is now why, let's say, the responsibilities are now so spread out is really the Ukraine war. Because if you didn't have that, if you didn't have, Baerbock having to travel the world and Habeck having to travel the world to find gas for us, etc., you wouldn't have this kind of, prominence of these other faces, I would say, as that now, where basically the crisis has to be managed by more than just this one person. But if you look at what Scholz is doing, he's clearly trying to be Merkel in a guy. That's what he's trying to do.
Rinse, repeat.
Yes. because
Okay.
and he's from the SPD. He's from the the enemy party. He's kind of more left than the Christian Democrats, but
Officially.
it's a winning. For Germans for Germany. This is a winning concept. Just be someone that people can trust. And what does it mean to be trusted? It means that people trust in you, that you always choose what is best for our nation. That's what he's doing, right?
Did the Social Democrats go into the election saying like we're going to do some relatively ambitious left program and have since then not done this, or did they go into the election being like we're not really going to change anything?
There were some things that basically were in the program that tried to cater, let's say, to progressive demands, minimum wages, raising
Legalization
money,
of cannabis,
especially the cannabis thing. Then some stuff about the abortion laws. And a big thing also on the woke green side of this whole government, of course, is the climate transition. So. Yeah, there was, and I think they're actually also on track. I mean, we're now talking a year, but we are kind of on track to fulfilling all this stuff. Nothing in the program was in any way left-leaning or subversive. I would even say that even if Merkel stayed for another 4 years, she would probably would have done similar things.
Almost the same, yeah.
Yeah, I think what's happening now though, because of the Greens and the SPD being in power, it's a little bit more geared towards this aspect of modernization, like getting Germany back on top when it gets, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to the way that we govern the country, building internet. I mean, we are a backwards country regarding internet, right? For example, and all these things are now maybe getting a little bit more push from them, but also the Ukraine war is putting, a break on many things there.
Well, we have a lot of questions relative to the Ukraine war. Is it safe to say that Angela Merkel was the last competent European political leader?
Why?
No, I wouldn't say.
Why? Why on earth?
Boris Johnson is incompetent.
Well, there's the thing, yes, Boris Johnson might be a moron, but he's playing his role perfectly well, and Merkel competent as in what? As in keeping shit together, in terms of consolidating the influence of Germany in Europe and the world, consolidating the wealth distribution that we currently have. Then she was very competent at that.
Yeah, I grant that. I would say she was competent, but I would say also the guys that are not in now are not incompetent.
They play their role.
I don't think Scholz is. I don't think incompetent. Like I know he has kind of this.
When I say incompetent, I mean in the traditional neoliberal technocratic, like Obama was not incompetent. Like, not that she was good for the masses, for the proletariat. I mean that she kept she kept the electricity running. She kept the lights, the bulbs were on. In other words, the reason I'm making this clear is that it is fundamentally transparent that there's part of the liberal bourgeois elite that are right now, in the wake of COVID, incompetent. They are not competent. They cannot manage global crises well at all. They don't do it well. Well, and what I'm saying is, the question I'm asking is that, are the ones who are still able to manage those crises becoming more and more rare? And is she one of the rare ones?
There's sorry for rushing forward, Nadim, but there's one very important thing to me. Did she manage the corona crisis? Because as far as I know, at some point we overtook the Americans in terms of deaths per day, per capita. So she was maybe where I would go for competence. I think she was maybe more competent in the performance of a politician, but I think she failed, to my standards, in the corona crisis, as all bourgeois heads of states need to fail, because they cannot manage the corona crisis in an appropriate way. It's just impossible for them. And yeah, that's the angle I would have. I mean, maybe she's better at performing or at oozing professionalism, but that doesn't mean her decisions are necessarily better than the ones of Boris Johnson.
Again, I would say COVID is a special case. I think COVID was also a big challenge to not only politicians, but even the scientific community. And until today, we don't have a cohesive decision on which approach was the best approach in terms of, saving life. But at the same time, in this capitalist system, global system that we are living in, saving life cannot be the only priority, because if you then, I don't know, you close down your borders or do something like China did, what you have to take into account is that there will be ripple effects from that, and you might go into a recession, and this is also something that you have to weigh against, right? So I think COVID was a little bit a special case that we can discuss separately. But if we look at Ukraine now, I would totally reject the notion that the German government is not managing this well. I think it's the opposite. They're actually, the amount of stuff that they're doing at the same time, both to manage outside dependencies as well as inside dependencies, are working extremely well. But that does not mean that this is in the interest of the population or the interest of the people that live in that nation, at least not directly. And that still means that we can freeze. That still means that, we have to pay a lot of more higher electricity bills. But under the circumstances of a capitalist democracy that decided to take part in a war, and we are taking part in that war, it's not just we are helping a little bit, we are actively engaging in a war that is not only economic even, we are sending weapons, and we're basically doing everything other than actually landing with our troops. We are actually doing pretty well. So I think if Merkel was here, she would not do it much differently. I think the one difference maybe is, and that is an external difference, is that the situation has changed to a degree. If you look 6-7 years ago, Germany was the biggest, agitator for a diplomatic solution in Ukraine. I mean, Minsk basically came at the hands of Europe, right? So, and the US didn't like that. And the US were fighting that for a long time. The US were fighting Nord Stream 2 for a long time. They didn't like this kind of relationships that are today being called dependencies that we had towards Russia, right? So, and they managed to, or like the whole military-industrial complex of the NATO managed to get us into a situation where Germany now has to choose. Okay, either it is your beneficial cooperations with Russia that let you thrive in the last 10 years, and that are the reason for the prosperity that you're enjoying right now. If you do that, then that means you have to go against the US. You have to go against the US if you want to do that. And then the decision is clear. There would not have been another decision by Merkel in any way, shape, or form. And once you decide, then, okay, we go pro-NATO, we try to change the world a little bit, we try to gear it a little bit to our expectations and our demands, and try to extend our own power. But the moment that this doesn't work anymore, like in this case, we say, okay, full on NATO, full on US. And in that moment, you have to just manage the fallout from all of this. And that's also why you have such vicious military and war rhetoric going on in Germany right now at all levels, both from the people as well as from the politicians. And I think, to be honest, I think Merkel probably would have done very, very much the same. I do think so.
Well, you're taking me to my next question, because this is the really the big one here, is that with your new Chancellor Olaf Scholz in the office, it seems like the immediate international crisis pushed him into decision-making power really quickly. Can you discuss the Russian war with the Ukraine and the effect it has had on the German political scene from all levels? Please, I would like to see. This is a big question, because we've touched on it in terms of the energy crisis. We've touched on it in terms of how NATO has forced Germany, which was seeming to be in a détente with Russia before the Ukraine crisis, with the Nord Stream 2 and all these other energy deals, to pick sides. I would like, really, if you guys can go into the detail, how this has changed facts on the ground.
Or rather, what I can say is what immediately comes to mind for me is it has shown to a very strong degree how people rally behind a system with moral outcries. So this is, for example, this is something that Corona already kind of showed us a little bit. Like the discourse was extremely heated, always moralizing, not analyzing but moralizing, and the same that you have now. So I would say that even within my really lefty acquaintances or group of friends, a lot of people are actually on course for the war. They support that war. They support like whatever it takes to destroy the tyrant Putin. And this is something that should not have surprised me. It did though, but it shouldn't have. I think that the political climate is interesting in such a case because when Olaf Scholz started last year, immediately the German society was not very fond of him. So he did not have like an acting point, like, okay, I'm Olaf Scholz and this is what I'm doing. So there was no connection. Like it was just like, he's just doing the same shit as every government before and we're suffering, etc., etc. But the moment the war actually started in February, he, to like standing ovations, communicated, for example, 100 billion to be put into additional military efforts in Germany, and you immediately were like, where the fuck were those 100 billion the last couple of years? And it was literally to standing ovations in the Bundestag, and so I would say, like, I just love to pull it out of my head, but there's always this famous quote by Hermann Göring during the interrogations in the Nuremberg trial, where he said that, of course, Germans didn't want war, but you can always push anyone to do the bidding of the leaders. You just have to tell them that they're being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism. That's a literal Hermann Göring quote here. And I think that this quote is very, 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 very precise and to show what's going on, because it is immediately the narrative. It is little bit more complex than that, but it's immediately narrative. If you are not for war against Russia, you're against Germany, Europe, and the values it was built on. That's the narrative, and it's almost everywhere. Almost like down to how can I say, the petty bourgeois anarchist squads. You can see a narrative like that.
Yeah, I would add maybe that there's a lot of contradiction going on, because as I said before, Germany might have had different interests regarding the relations to Russia. Now that changed a little bit, but what you can see definitely since then as a result of it is like a return to something that hasn't been in Germany really like that explicit for 60, 70 years, which is really this idea that we have to become a force to be reckoned with again.
Yes, the sleeping giant.
That we have to again take our responsibility. I'm directly alluding, of course, to the learnings, supposed learnings we did from the Holocaust, and take our responsibility and shape the world in our interest, and be able to do that again. In order to do that again, we need military, we need money, and the whole narrative has shifted to that. You can feel this also in the population, where the nationalism, both towards Germany as well as by proxy towards the Ukraine, has become so extreme that, and that's maybe what Daniel meant by he was surprised. I haven't seen that in my lifetime, not to that extent, and not as widely spread throughout the whole nation. I mean, where it's like Russia is attacking us, Putin is attacking us, and by us we mean Europe, we mean the freiheitliche Weltordnung, which means like the freedom-based, rule-based world society.
Rules-based international order.
Yes, the international order, exactly. So Russia is attacking that, and now we have to step up to fulfill our responsibility. And I think if you ask me what has changed since then, I think that's it. Because before that, we wouldn't really, I mean, we have this national sentiment everywhere, but not so explicit and so all throughout, prevailing throughout the media, even in schools. I mean, one story that one of our guys told us in the interview.
Oh my God, yes.
Just when the war started, two stories actually. First, just when the war started, 1 week after, I'm walking down the street and I see a kindergarten and they're like it's a neighbor kindergarten, and there are windows where normally the kids put pictures that they drew into the windows for outside people to see, to look at them, right? So what do you see that day? It's full of hand-drawn Ukraine flags, all put into the window in a freaking kindergarten, right? And then Daniel had an interview with a friend of ours who says that he's a teacher, and he said in his school there was one of our teachers, this woman, she started building model bomber airplanes and hung them into the classroom. So there were these airplanes flying above the kids, basically. So that's the kind of spirit that we also see now. It's not, I mean, that's the extremes, but if you see the extremes, you always know a little bit where the middle is.
I wanna add to that. Our Minister of Defense, Christine Lambrecht, also a social democrat. So she literally said that Germany has to take a dominating role in the world order, and now I love it, whether we like it or not. It's the same as back then with the bombing of Belgrade, where Germany joined the NATO forces in an attack war on Serbia. And it was like, in Germany, we always kill people with a very sad face. It's like, oh, now we have to kill again. I'm so sorry. It's just a necessity. We have to defend the values which this society is built on by just killing a lot of motherfuckers. So sorry about that. And what Lambrecht literally said that, like even if we don't want to be like the dominant military force in the world, it's out of our hands. We just have to. Sorry about that. Sorry.
And I just one thing to add for all these people that maybe took my initial statement as, saying that kind of the US pushed Germany into this. I don't think that's the case, right? So I think Germany has their own interest in this. I do think the US is the main driving force behind the war in Ukraine. And of course, that means Germany has a lot to react to. But what you can see now is that the intention is to reestablish Germany as a military force to reckon with in the world. And I mean, ultimately, that's also something that everybody kind of sees coming. We live in a dollar-dominated, US-dominated global capitalism that forces people to take part in this global market and forces nations and states all over the world to take part in this global market, which will result in those nations and states, one or two of them, becoming stronger, more effective in the way that they accumulate capital, and then they will become some kind of competition again for the US, which we see now, of course, with China mostly. You don't see that with Russia. Russia is more like it's like a military competition because of their military capabilities, and that just has to be cut off now because it's just too much of a pain in the other plans. So I think Germany is on its way there. I don't think I don't want to say like Germany wants the world, once again become the Fourth Reich or something like that. I'm not saying that's what they're trying to do, but they are interested, like every other capitalist nation, to use other nations to their benefit, and they see a good moment now for something that has been kind of it has been like the you don't go there. You don't speak about remilitarization in Germany. This is something that is kind of like forbidden, even though it has happened constantly. But this open display of that, like again, Germany becomes this military power. This is something that is new, and Germany took the Ukraine war as an occasion to do that. Why do I say this? There is another. I mean, we wrote an article for Sublation also. You can read into this. But this plan for the 100 billion, it's not, I mean, it was literally communicated one day after the start of the war. There were less than 48 hours going into the start of the war to communicating the 100 billion. So this plan has been on their desk since months. Actually,
back in October.
We have reporting from Spiegel that they had that in mind since October already. And obviously they were waiting for the right occasion to do this, where it doesn't look as, suspicious maybe, right?
And also, it's you can also read that in the Sublation article that Fabian and Nadim wrote. But it's also the 100 billion are more than the US demanded, like way more. It's more than the percentage of the gross income product.
It's by the way, it's 100 billion plus the 2% annual spending, so it's on top, right?
Yeah.
So we will still have the 2% annual spending every year now. And we have the 100 billion, which is like they call it the Sonderbudget, which is like a special budget that they set up.
I think it's the third largest military budget in the world. Let's just roll off your tongue.
It's definitely by far bigger than Russia's. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we're back. Cower and fear.
I'm sorry, it's not 100 billion. It's not 100 billion. It's 100. Wait.
It is billion. American billion is German Milliarden.
Okay. we always get confused. Yeah, 100 billion. Correct. Sorry. Yeah. Yes.
M. Tucson, you had some questions about the effect on German energy with the war in Ukraine, as well as Nord Stream 2. You want to address your questions?
Who showers alone showers with Putin.
Sure. Oh my gosh. We were starting
that was literally
propaganda a little bit too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw
you
that
drive
one just
alone,
today.
You drive with Putin.
Yeah.
He's a great boogeyman, isn't he?
Sorry?
I said he's such a great boogeyman.
Such a great boogeyman.
Yeah. He's
makes a
the
great
perfect
boogeyman.
What are your thoughts on?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Germany still trying to get aid for ailing energy company Uniper?
Yeah. Okay.
You take that one.
All right. Now Germany starts an economic war against Russia, right? Mm-hmm. And they do this with full consequence. They not only they don't only go along with the sanctions that the US imposed. They impose their own sanctions. They impose their own pressure on Ukraine. So, and they know that this will have repercussions. In the public, they of course play it like, oh, Putin now is closing the oil valve. But of course, you cannot really in a capitalist society demand someone to send you oil when you stop to pay him, or when you tell him, yeah, maybe we pay you, maybe not, but
and
we're also still send the oil. So
yeah, and we're also going independent from you, so we're gonna fuck you over in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, even that he would still sell it, right? So, and they were trying to also manage this in a way that it gets beneficial for Russia. Russia wanted to still keep that going, but they were showing first with that turbine that broke. Suddenly, oh, look, we can also stop that. Just look what's happening here if we stop that. Well, these kind of moves triggered two things. First, the price of oil, the natural price of oil, rose. Second, there was speculation going on, so the price of oil, boom, explodes, right? There is a third thing that Germany now does, because they say, wow, if he really closes up that valve, we have trouble in the winter. So now Germany goes along with all its power and all its might, both economically and politically, goes throughout the world and tries to find new deliverers for oil and gas. So what they are doing this way is they're increasing the demand on all these other oil sources, and also that pushes the price up. Okay? And they know that. So we are now in a situation where we are actually buying so much oil and so much gas that countries like India and Pakistan do not have enough oil anymore from their suppliers, because we are taking it from them. All right? That is one of the reasons why India is now getting oil from Russia, by the way. Okay? And the LNG, by the way, the liquid nitrogen gas that we're getting from the US, yeah, we are now the highest bidder on this. That's why the price went so up. Okay. Now, when that price is so high, that means for our companies here that they have to buy this oil, like Uniper, for example, it's in Finland, but they have to buy this oil at a much higher price. Before they got it really, really cheap. They got it from Russia. Now they have to buy it at a much higher price. That also means that if they can't directly communicate this higher price to their customers and say, okay, now you have to pay, I don't know, triple the amount or four times the amount. If they can't do that immediately, that they will go bankrupt. This is what happened, basically what was about to happen with Uniper. And as these companies are, though, what we call systemrelevant, we call that, because if these companies break, they are such a big and immensely important part of European and German economy. Because all our companies need this oil, all our cars, all our trucks, all our ships, we need this stuff for our economy to function. they will put everything on the table to save these kind of companies. All right. So that's what is happening with Uniper now. For us, the normal people, this translates in higher prices and significantly higher prices for the amount of heating, for gas prices for the car, etc. But I want to just make one thing clear, because we are making jokes about freezing, not freezing. There is no scarcity here. There isn't. 90% of our gas reservoirs in Germany are filled up. This has never been the case before.
Wow.
It has always been at 60%. And now our exterior minister, he says, Minister for Economy and Umwelt, I think, right? So he says now, maybe after all, we will make it through the winter. Maybe, let's see, fingers pressed, right?
And
there is no scarcity, but what's happening is everything is, and this is because we are in this kind of economy, everything is much, much more expensive. And saving those companies like Uniper, by the way, gets translated in what we call a Gasumlage. It's not only that thing, but other measures to save companies like that is by let's say it like this. The government will pay for every kilowatt hour that you are buying from a company. The government will pay like 20-30% on top. All right. Because these companies that are selling their oil now and selling their gases to us private consumers, they can't raise the prices that much, because then nobody will use that anymore. So they're saying, oh, I'm making losses. And now the government steps in, and say, I will compensate your losses. How do they compensate the losses? Well, we are cutting taxes for you. You don't have to pay this tax anymore. And we are raising the prices for the customer, which is us again. And that's why this is called the Gasumlage, the shifting of the gas price basically to the customer. We are now paying the insolvency management of all these energy companies. And just one last thing. I don't want to sound also like I'm saying that we shouldn't be doing this, because if we are not doing this in this nice economy that we are in, we are all fucked. Because we do need this energy. We do need somehow, some way for this gas to arrive here. And if ultimately all the actions that Germany is doing now, and that's why I'm saying they are managing this also so well, all the actions that Germany are taking now regarding Uniper and regarding saving other companies, regarding shutting off taxes, they are there to avoid a deeper recession that everybody sees coming. But we just want to make sure that it doesn't hit Germany as bad as maybe some other countries in Europe. That's my 50 cents for that.
I would like to add a couple of things. Like, first, what I think is really interesting that because a lot of people complained that the Gasumlage, which could be used as a tool by oil companies to save their profits, not to save themselves or from bankruptcy, but just to save their profits. This is one of the moments where I'm like, why is nobody out there with torches and pitchforks? Our economy minister Habeck said that he really he pledged to the morals of the gas companies. So please don't use the Gasumlage if you're profitable. So that would not be fair. So even though they know that it will be done, they're just like, no, please don't. And the problem is, which is going to hit especially the poorer people in Germany a lot, is that we already had an insane price increase for gas way before the war. So, this is my real life example. So I used to pay around $80-90 for gas in my flat, and without adding to the consumption of gas, it got increased 210 euros by the beginning of the year. So that's more than double the price for gas alone. And I'm lucky. I have a good job. I'm in IT. I can afford that. It's less luxury for me. For some people, it's a neck breaker. And but now it gets really crazy. Of course, with all this going on, I just got a letter from the gas company in August that they're going to latch on another 30%. 30% of 210, not 30% of 80, of course. So it's going to be 70 euros more even. So I'm almost at 300 euros. It's almost as no, it's not as much as the flat, but it's like a significant amount of my money just goes into my everyday going about, like cooking, heating, washing, showering. And the second thing that I think is almost genius level is that they're all combining this effort with a lot of moralism. Like, for example, it's not like, hey, if you cannot afford gas, shower for a shorter time. I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. But the narrative that we're bringing about in the media is like, if you're showering less, if you're now saving on gas, you're helping the war effort. And that's
it's like we have to go through pain because it's
sacrifice.
It's this war that was brought up onto us. It's that crazy dictator over there, and we have to go through pain now. I just want to say one thing maybe to add to the previous question of how they manage us. They are aware. The state is aware of the pressure that this will exert on existences basically in Germany that cannot, like we're talking, I'm sure we're talking like 40 or 50% of the population that will be in existential threat now with the next price increase, right? And they are aware of this, so they are starting to, propagate some relief packages. Just this month, I think, everybody that is employed somewhere, interestingly, only the employed ones, got 300. Yeah, the unemployed ones don't heat, I guess. But they got 300 euros more cash on their bank accounts. And there are a couple of other things now being discussed on how to relieve the pain. Now, you would think that if you have an inflation like that, I mean, we can talk about, wage price spiral, etc. But you would think, okay, let's at least raise some prices. Wouldn't that call the unions into action? Wouldn't the unions now be saying, okay, now that there is an 8% secular inflation, we need to have 8%, maybe 10% of salary increase, as the last salary increase for my union has been like 4 years ago. So how about we do that now? Yeah, but then the state comes in and says, no. Slowly. You unions, you should be aware that we are in war and we are fighting a greater fight here, and everybody has to take a share of the burden. So please, if you pay something, pay a one-time payment. Give a one-time payment to everybody, but don't raise the wages, because then we will have the real inflation, and then everything is down the drain. Well, obviously, this is not how this works. Of course, there's a wage price spiral, but of course, you could easily adapt the wages for at least the union wages for, 3, 5, 4, 5%, and alleviate some of the pain. But no, this precedent is not supposed to happen. It should be clear. It should be one-time payment. Why? Because it's soon going to be over. We're just fighting this war, and then it's all going to be over. And then after this, our capitalists cannot deal with those higher wages that you put on us now. So please don't do that. That's happening at the same time. And I mean, you cannot say that this is bad management. This is excellent management. They are thinking of every edge case. They're thinking of every corner.
It's a fucking well-oiled machinery going on right now. And what there is, how can I say, not a positive aspect to this, but what is there is that they are gearing up for what they call the hot autumn, because of course with people being affected by price increases left and right, all the oppositional parties that are not like directly neoliberal, or well, even them, even AfD, they are now using this to fight for the next election, or to fight the government on this with different motivations. And what currently is there, we are hoping that it might take off a little bit. Is that there are some campaigns like Enough is Enough, Genug ist Genug. They are trying to use this for large scale salary or like salary struggles with the unions, etc. So we have to see how this plays out. Right now, it looks like the government really backed the unions with that. Let's just go for a one-time payment.
And I mean, honestly, look at how the state immediately, the politicians and the media immediately reacted to these kind of threats of a protest wave, right? So I mean, it was already clear in the summer. people are preparing to like send out a huge protest wave in autumn and fall. Yeah, that should come now soon. Let's see what it will be. I don't think it will be a revolution. But they're already preparing since months on exactly that front. And how would they do it? I think that brings us back to the very first topic that we talked about. Because the way that they're doing this is saying, well, look at all the protests back then when we had Corona. Didn't you see that all these protests that went against state measurements were ultimately right-wing protests, fascist elements, dangerous right-wing people that want to see our order crumble? Well, you should take care that all these protests in the fall don't also turn the right way. And of course, the right wants to hatch onto it anyway. That is true, right? But they are already discrediting this. Like if there's somebody, look, there are two slogans that. One example, I had a discussion with somebody else yesterday. Two slogans that you could use in this case. You could say, "We don't pay for this crisis," right? The second slogan that you could use, and it's much more combative, is "We don't pay for this war," right? But the second one, no one here will use, because they know immediately that the moment that you question that this war, these sanctions, this economic warfare that we are waging on Russia is not 100% legitimate, and we need to stand behind it, that moment you are already on the right, you're already like a Putin friend, you're already cast out, right? And that's why also the left now is really careful with this, and I think it's a big mistake.
Yes.
In leftist circles, you constantly feel that people are afraid to mention the sanctions regime, that people are afraid to mention the war that we are waging in Ukraine. They just want to talk about price caps. They only want to talk about what's going on regarding the inflation and our wages. They don't want to talk about the source of all this, which is Germany, together with Europe and together with the US, decided to wage a war that is supposed to completely destroy Russia's capabilities to wage a war like they are waging now in Ukraine on the long term. That is the consequence of all of this.
Well, let me ask, since you guys are facing I don't know what your reports are saying about the winter. Where's the environmental movement in this? To say, hey, let's get off of oil.
It's we had the climate strike just yesterday, so it was significantly smaller than the last one, which kind of also gives you a little bit of perspective on this. Well, there's a lot of possible answers to that questions, or a lot of facets that you can answer with. First, which I think is really crazy, is of course the minister the Minister of Exterior is Annalena Baerbock, with her feminist foreign policy. She is from the Green Party, so she is from the party that actually is supposed to have an eye on the ecology issue, on the climate change issue. And the thing is, I had a friend who used to be vegan. Just as a fun anecdote, he used to be vegan and he stopped being that. And I was like, "Why did you stop being a vegan?" He said, because with 100 billion going to the military, nobody gives a flying fuck if I'm vegan or not. And that's really interesting, because the increase in military spend will also be a significant increase in the expulsion of carbon dioxide. This is just a given, because the military-industrial complex is one of the biggest polluters that we have. And the interesting thing is nobody's saying shit about that. I've never seen this angle, like, hey, increased military might be increased carbon dioxide. I've not seen it once anywhere, although it's probably one of the most significant things that you can have here. On the other hand, they're now selling this kind of, we need to save some gas, don't shower alone, or shower shorter, and don't heat as much. Wear a pullover in your flat. Don't take the car, take the public transport. They're not kind of like using that with the same angle. They're like, and you're also doing something for the environment. If you heat less, it's not only great because it helps us beat Putin, but it's also good for the environment. Ain't that the thing? So
there's another angle to this that's very important, and that is the dependency on Russia's oil. I mean that's an interesting contradiction again, I would say. So on the one hand, the Green Party, which are we have two of them in our government, as heads of our governments, basically, they're quite happy about the fact that now something has happened that forced Germany into becoming more independent of the fossil fuel industry of Russia, right? Because that was always the argument for why we wouldn't go all renewables, because renewables would be much more expensive. Well, this is changing now a little bit. At the same time, and here's the funny contradiction, at the same time, they, with the argument of, patriotic war against Russia, with that argument, they also reactivate plans to, for example, keep using our nuclear facilities, which they were supposed to turn off by the end of this year. Coal, right?
One of
Both
the
wood
dirtiest
coal, stone coal.
fossil fuels.
They're going back into this. They're doubling down on this, even with the Greens and the environmental guys. They're saying, yeah, we need that now because the war aims that we have are bigger than this. At the same time, we are becoming independent of Russia, and that will in the future maybe make us renewable. Well, there's this interesting dialectic there where that I don't think they even see themselves. But that's definitely part of the public discourse. It's good that we are now that we are heating less. There are people now having on Twitter, arguments over whether you should sit in your office with 19 degrees or with 18 degrees. What's more environmentally friendly? What spends less gas? Yeah. These are discussions people are having now, or showing off how I saw another thread on Twitter where people are showing off their clothes, their layers of clothes that they're wearing while sitting at the desk and working. It's like, look, I have that, and that's very efficient, and I have the scarf here, and that's
people are going fucking
It's
mental. My last hope is still.
Oh yeah, it's cold now already. It's cold already in Germany now.
Yep.
It's not nice. Yeah.
My last hope, to be honest, is just that nuclear winter is going to mitigate climate change. So it's maybe we're well off there.
Now we need the
being
soundboard.
in the
We need the
U.S. for
soundboard.
years, I've heard. Yeah, we do, right?
Go ahead, I'm just done.
For years, I've heard that China and leaders in green technology, and the understanding was that you guys were so far. I was surprised. I shouldn't have been. That you guys get energy from oil from Russia. What is your green reputation?
We are leaders. We are leaders of technology, of green technology. We are, but we are exporting them. We're not using them ourselves. We are. Germany
We're making
is
money
the,
with
is
them.
the
We're
world
not saving the
champion.
environment.
Germany is the world champion of export. That's our business. We export stuff, especially technology. We export cars. You know that. Wash machines. Probably one of your dishwashers. It's the German one, right? So that's what Germany does. And the same with the renewable technology. We'd never we have all the wind. I don't know how you call them. The propeller thingies that are standing all around the country. We do have that stuff, but we have not. We cannot afford
Turbines.
to keep 80 million turbines exactly. We cannot afford to keep 80 million people with light and heat without using gas and oil. It's just not possible currently, and that's why we need the cheapest. And we got the cheapest with a very, very good deal from Russia, Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2. And that's also part of the reason why Germany went, Germany didn't really have like a dramatic crisis after 2008. I mean, we had some stuff, that everybody knows, right?
We
And
dodged a
Greece,
bullet there.
Greece, etc. But Germany itself, especially sitting inside of the European Union and controlling the whole European Union to its benefit, we had a good decade.
That's actually I wanna latch on to that because when people now say there was even, I think it was in some American newspaper, was the article like the sleeping giant has awakened because Germany is now on the rise to power again. And I want to point out exactly what Nadim said here is actually in 2008 or 9 we've shown the entire world how much we care about the ideals of the European Union. I mean, really, like the ideals that people think that it was built for. Because if you ask like my parents or friends like what's the European Union, I'm like it's an ambassador of peace within Europe. So it's like it's free trade, but also it's freedom and democracy, etc., etc. And when the push came to shove, and a fellow EU country was threatened by state bankruptcy, we pummeled them into submission so heavily that until 6 weeks ago, whenever Greece had their annual budget for their own state, Germany was mandatory to sign it off. I mean, imagine that. Imagine like a foreign nation going to your financial minister, looking at his plan and saying like, yeah, we agree, go forth.
Is that ended now?
It ended 6 weeks ago. The Troika ended 6 weeks ago. And to me, that was like, for me, that was the very moment where I realized that there was something, like in my own back then idealism, that something was really amiss. So we just fucked over a country, like into total financial domination. And going on, like, why did we do that? There are a lot of reasons why did we do that. Not because we're evil, but because it's useful to us. They're like an exterior border of the European Union, so we can also pummel them into submission. And what the treatment and the processing of fugitives is, and then we can blame it on them. Like if by now it has become official that Greece border forces are throwing handcuffed refugees back into the water, so that they definitely don't try to swim back. And we can hide. Yeah, we can hide behind that. We can say, "Oh, that's horrible. What's going on the EU borders?" In fact, it is to our benefit and under our control. For example, because like by vice versa, like if Greece would have allocated a significant budget for the helping of the refugee crisis, or the other way around, Germany had always a veto. They could have said, "Hey guys, you have thousands of people dying in the Mediterranean. Maybe put some money in there." No. So I do think that Germany, as a superpower in its own, is longer coming than just this war effort that we are currently seeing. I think it was not in preparation, but it was like a steady increase in dominance.
Yeah, Germany is not a superpower yet, but it's aspiring to be one, and that explicitly again. That's the difference now. They make it explicit. It's not only part of their actions. I mean, you already saw that in Yugoslavia. You saw that in Afghanistan. They already started to come back to this, but now it's explicit. They want to get back to.
Well, look at the degree of remilitarization surrounded around the rhetoric with this Ukraine war. I mean, this is like a full militarization campaign.
Absolutely,
it is. And if you now walk in the subways or the bus stations of Germany, like advertisements for the German army are everywhere, and they are using this really crazy. The next time Nadim gives an answer, I'm gonna look up some examples and show them to you. They are really using this.
You're saying I'm taking so long to answer, or what's your?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. And I've heard it before. We're working together in our own podcast, so it's.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about that later.
No, I already got a bruise from you. That was your foot here. Don't. No, but it all uses this like modern pseudo progressive, this liberal progressive attitude, like with females, with people of color, etc. Like so it is the same in the direction that it's going. Like it always is. Like join the army and serve the system and defend your values. But the way they're presenting it is like we're in the nice army. Like with us, we might wear fatigues, we might carry guns, but in the end, we're nice. This is about you. This is about, how can I say, developing your own potential. Do it at our place. Shoot foreigners.
The intersectional army.
So do you guys think that the Ukraine war will be the final decisive step towards German remilitarization? And in Germany, just the army becomes the same attitude that there is towards it in the UK and France. It's fine for us to intervene in foreign conflicts because we're democratic nations and we know how to do this properly.
I would agree to that. Yeah.
I mean, you can see a lot of things pointing to that. I don't think that it will entirely look like everyone will be drafted and there will be a general mobilization and we will land in 5 different countries at the same time. I don't think that this is what's going to be, but it's more like in this world order of capitalist nations that kind of try to dominate each other with their imperialism. The amount of economic power that Germany has.
I think you froze. It's a very James Bond villain like gesture here.
For a good gesture.
He froze for a second.
Yeah, he's 0 out of 10 on connection. So he's dead. Rip. You're looking for the posters.
Yeah, I was looking into the posters. So
It was interesting because the ones in Britain talk less about kind of values like Democrat. I don't know what values you talk about, defending values when you say that, but the British kind of woke posters are about like a feeling of belonging. It's very postmodern in the sense that like community no longer exists anywhere else, but you can still find it in the army because we still have this old-fashioned structure, while in the same time being open and woke in this other way of accepting women, of accepting people of color, of gay people, and so on.
I have one of my favorites here. Maybe I can share my screen just quickly,
If it allows you to. If not, you can post in the private chat, and Toussaint will be able to do it.
Yeah, I think.
I will.
Is it sharing?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one is really nice.
Hold on. Hold on.
Yeah, multiplayer at its best.
Wow.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Why is it in fucking English?
Yeah, I don't know. Here's another one. Someone who is probably of, how can I say, of migrant descent. We have here. Never fight for you. Just kämpfe nie für dich allein. Never fight just for yourself. So and it's probably some Turkish guy. Because
he's very ambiguous, isn't he? He could be from anyone, which presumably is the point.
Yeah,
He's a
so
biker.
and you have them everywhere. So that is really new to me. I've not seen like for years. I've not seen how can I say like army advertisements, but now they're everywhere. It's like this full on effort to make army a cool thing again. I've seen police advertisements, a lot of them in the last couple of years. So I do think that the state itself is it's recruiting for repression and like aggressiveness actually. So that's the fun fact, because we're using slogans that might sound nice, but in the end, also if you look at the police, it's the same as in the US. They're highly militarized. They look like fucking mercenaries right now. Like when I was a kid and I grew up in a village in the south of Bavaria, when I saw a policeman, they had brown pants, a yellow shirt, and a green, like almost like formal jacket and a cap, maybe a gun. Not all of them had guns, and that was it. You could recognize them. And now if you see a policeman, even like in the villages in Germany where nothing ever happens, they have like ballistic vests and everything. Like you have the feeling that is that BlackRock or police? I don't know. I can't tell the difference.
Do you think this will also lead to a rehabilitation of the German flag, especially going into the World Cup?
That is a little bit different, I think, because that started in 2006 already with when we were really successful by surprise. Nobody thought that we would be that successful in the World Cup. And yeah, there was flags everywhere, German flags, and we had a slightly neurotic ambivalence towards our own nation as a nation. So we of course used it and we served it, but like you were not supposed to say that you're a patriot or that you're like nationalist. Okay, you're not supposed to say that even now. You were not supposed to say that you're a patriot. And I remember when you had this immense, like this ocean of flags, and I hate nation state flags, like no matter which nation. I react allergic to them. And suddenly all the newspapers were full of like, oh, finally, we are someone again. We're again a country that can display their flag proudly. I'm like, is that a good thing?
It's such a base ideology when you get down to it, man.
Yes.
I mean, I wonder if they'll do the move of like, no flag, and then Ukraine flag, and then you take the Ukraine flag down and you put the German flag back up.
Hi guys, sorry.
Hello.
That's
no problem.
Germany's internet for you. That's how it goes.
Like I had better internet connection on the mountain of a small rural Greek island than I have in Germany. I'm not kidding you.
It's a common thing though, right? Because states like the UK and Germany have bad internet because they got the internet first when it was really bad.
It's all old.
While countries that got it more recently have been able to start with like fiber and whatever.
Yep, exactly. Right.
Yeah, I just showed some advertisements for the Deutsche Bundeswehr, like nice ones.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, my last sentence was that basically Germany is trying to bring on par their economic power that they have in the world with their military power. I don't think it will immediately result in them landing in countries. It will be a threat of that. Well, if the order doesn't go as we dictate it, there is this power that we still have in the back, and that's important, and that plays a lot of role, even though it doesn't come to wars all the time, right? I mean, the war in Ukraine is not happening every day. That's something that's why it shocked everybody, because these kind of wars don't happen that much anymore.
Do you guys know the status of economic aid to Ukraine? Because obviously the Ukraine's been flooded with kind of military aid.
Oh,
but
yeah,
also
and it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Defaulting on its aid, and I've heard lots of reports that Germany is kind of holding up European Union aid to Ukraine because Germany basically saying, well, Ukraine isn't going to pay us back, so why should we give them any money?
There was also a famous quote by Ursula von der Leyen, the ex Minister of Defense in Germany, now President of the EU. She said that once we help the Ukraine getting back on track, we for sure, and it's like saying the quiet part out loud. She said, this aid will for sure be connected to some demands. And I was like, did she say that out loud? Because it's basically like, we're going to help you, but we're also going to make you our bitch.
I felt like saying like, oh, the West will use this to privatize Ukraine was like a silly conspiracy theory. But then I read a report by the World Bank and they actually just said this. And it's like, okay, this is the leftists. They just say it, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So there's a nice little undercurrent neoliberal agenda about privatization of Ukraine that no one's.
Everybody hatches onto this and tries to make their profits and their winnings.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's also an important thing. Like it was when the Maidan happened, it was almost from the get-go. It was 100% clear that although yes, a lot of people were displeased with the acting government, that for sure a neoliberal agent is going to be the one that ends up in power. They even had massacres of left-wing people in Odessa, as far as I remember, that were downplayed in the German media, immensely downplayed. They said, "Oh, there was a fire somewhere in a left-wing building," and then somebody told me, like, "No, there was no fire. There was just people being on fire." And he showed me pictures, and like the building was not burning, just the people inside.
Well, I mean, what happened is, people blocked all the exits and then set the building on fire.
Yeah, actually, with the pictures that I saw were even worse because sometimes it was only the heads that had been engulfed with gasoline, etc., and stuff like that, and the females also had obvious signs of sexual violence. So it was a clusterfuck, and Germany just presented in their media, yeah, there was a fire in the building. Yeah, it might be that some people died. So it was immediately clear that no matter what's going on in the Ukraine right now, as long as our agent takes charge, we're happy with it, and we're going to push them.
Oh, that's, by the way, this is also interesting. I mean, you might not witness this to the same extent. I don't know how this goes in the US, to be honest, but in Germany, the amount of ignorance that is suddenly portrayed towards Nazi insignia and units that are all openly, like Right Sector, like Azov, that are openly fascist, openly Nazis. There is not a day that goes by where you don't have a newspaper with, the front page or maybe the second page, a picture of some heroic soldier sitting on the stairs of a building with their gun in their hand. And then you see this little, Nazi
like sun, yeah.
Doesn't matter. That's okay. And when that is criticized, that's, they're fighting for their nation. We can't choose. We can't choose who we fight with. I mean, it's not possible.
I've also seen recently Ukrainians painting like the German army sign on their tanks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they were. I just saw yesterday. I see this every day. I mean, literally, this is happening all the time. But yesterday, I saw a video of I think Right Sector guys being interviewed, and there's a tank driving by in the back, like really slow, and it has the swastika on it.
Yeah, my favorite was
totally
when
normal stuff.
When there was like this long interview with one of the guys of the Azov regiment, and he had literally like the SS skull, like the SS skull, not a SS-like skull, but the SS skull, like on the center of his battle vest. And I was like, is anyone gonna acknowledge that? You're talking to someone who's using like literal SS insignia. Is somebody fucking home? No, apparently not.
But when Palestinians in Germany want to speak about apartheid or human rights violations in Palestine and Israel, oh, that's anti-Semitism. There we have to take care. There the Islamist fascism is spilling over into Germany. Yeah,
but
that's how
it was actually like also from a media perspective, it was rather clever, because again they had the one guy that everybody hates that pushes the Overton window of the discourse like so far to the right where you're like, oh, everybody hates that, so you let shit fly that normally would be totally out of the question. That was the Ukrainian ambassador in Germany, Melnik. He said things out loud where you're like,
he wrote yesterday that we shouldn't let Russians in, Russians that are now fleeing the partial mobilization of Russia. We shouldn't let them in because they didn't fight their government before, so they are part of the enemy, basically.
Yeah. Wow. And there was a German interview by a rather famous German journalist, Thilo Jung, because Andrei Melnik has been seen, like, for example, visiting the grave of Banderas, who was like a collaborator of the Nazis and like an openly fascist militia leader in the Second World War. And he read out like statements by Banderas. By the way, the term Slava Ukraini.
Bandera, not Banderas. Banderas is the actor. He's pretty cool.
Even the slogan Slava Ukraini, which has been even used by American punk bands on their merch and solidarity, is actually popularized by the Banderists, and is not the exact same, but it's kind of like as if Germany was attacked and American punk bands would print Sieg Heil on a pullover. It's not that far detached from that. So, by the way, anyway, and he read out like these anti-Semitic, like immensely, directly anti-Semitic, how they should be extinct, how he's going to collaborate with the Nazis. He read them out in an interview with Melnik. It's like, so what do you say to this? Like, do you say anything about this? And he literally said in the interview, I'm not going to distance myself from that. That was his final answer. It's like, come on. What are you aiming for? I'm not gonna say it's not my things. And
to be fair, he kept being the ambassador of Germany for 2 more weeks, and then he was done.
Yeah. But in the end, he was. You have to also be precise here. He was not like how can I say? He was not made a pariah or something like that.
No.
Promoted.
He was pulled back.
He was promoted
Zelensky
outside
called
of
him
Germany.
back.
Yeah.
It
he
was
called
also
him
not,
back and gave him promotion.
And it could not be the German government who says, "Oh, we want this guy out of our country." That's impossible. Because this guy just openly made, fascist statements, but we can't throw him out because he's Ukrainian. No, it had to be Zelensky calling him back by promoting him to a higher rank in Ukrainian government. That's what happens. So full circle, coming back to Trump being a fascist. If you want to see real fascists, we got some over here, and we got some in Ukraine. So, I think, then we get some dimension of these comparisons, maybe.
Just the amount of collaboration is insane, because there was a Jacobin article before the war that actually the US is financing like right-wing militias all over the world by financing the Azov regiment. And the Azov regiment is I've known that like from anti-fascist activism like for years. The Azov regiment is kind of like what the Hezbollah was in the 70s for left-wing terrorists. It's like the training camp to go to. So we are actually, our money is training white supremacists all over the world. Isn't that rad?
I mean, Azov is full of Russian Nazis. And as I guess you guys know, they host the biggest black metal concert in Europe.
Yeah. And that's another thing. That's another thing. Like I have heard, like, for example, Peste Noire, a National Socialist black metal band, they moved to the Ukraine to be closer to their brothers in mind. And what I think interesting
it's very interesting. Like since 2014, there was like a mass defection of the Russian black metal scene, the National Socialist Russian black metal scene, to Ukraine, and then they switched. They still sing the same songs, which is fascinating. Like Molov still sings my native land in Ukraine. Even though they're talking about Russia, but they'll play it now as if they were talking about Ukraine.
Wow, that's super interesting. I have never heard about that.
And that's the thing. Like in the early 2000s, Russia was a very important center for militant neo-Nazis, and it completely shifted to the Ukraine after the Maidan. Completely.
I wanted to ask you guys, what exactly, we talked about the rise of the cost of living in Germany. Mm-hmm. How is the inflation situation actually working out in terms of the day-to-day life of most Germans? And is it something that is the campaign to get people to support the war and suffer the consequences of the economy working in the consciousness of the German people? Is the question I want to ask.
My favorite example, because it's a very important currency in Germany, is the döner, which is like this Turkish-German
Shawarma.
street food. Yeah, it's like shawarma. And it used to cost $3.50, like until I'd say February or something like that. Like it was the standard price. Like almost no döner shop was significantly below or over $3.50. And they're all €6 right now, so they're almost double the price. And all the restaurants that I know, all the shops have increased their prices significantly. So it is noticeable. Just as a how can I say, as a focus, as a spotlight here. For example, like an average grocery shopping has become like 40% more expensive for me right now. Just going to the same store, buying the same goods, I'd say 40% more, something like that.
Wow.
On the other hand, I see no effort whatsoever. Same as I have to go back to what Nadim said. Even in the agitation of the left, I see no connection being made to the war whatsoever. It's like, shit is fucked.
With the food, to be fair, the food prices have been rising before the war. They have been rising all over the world. They are part due to the corona crisis and the supply chain crisis. So if you actually look at food prices, and we had this dinner conversation already last year, the rise that has been attributed to the war is actually minor. We're talking like, maybe 5% or 10% of the whole rise in the last 12 months is due to the war. So when it comes to food, we do have this kind of inflation that is based on other issues. Although also the corn, let's say the corn situation, of course, had some impact. It's not only the oil and gas. But I think what is much more important is the ripple effects that are being caused by the oil crisis, by the energy crisis, because that ultimately will also express itself in all prices. And that's what I meant before. It's so pivotal, this sector. It will influence how much food you can produce. It will influence the prices of the cars that you produce, of, I don't know, everything that is basically on the market to be bought, including services, will rise. And we definitely feel this a lot. Right now, like Daniel said, like some people had incredible rises of their their electricity bill. If you want to get a new contract now, the prices are horrendously high. Like we're talking about a third, or maybe even nearing half of the rent that you pay going into the electricity cost in some cases. And we're talking about a society in which we have huge amount of people living from unemployment aid, which is very little. And now these people have to deal with, they are already on the edge and they have to deal. Maybe I told you this before, or maybe it was in another session, but this kind of situation that looks like a stereotype, looks like something that is supposed to provoke tears. That happened to me, like in a supermarket, old lady in front of me. We're standing at the counter. She's counting her food. She didn't check the prices. It was very much in the beginning, in April, after the war. She didn't check the prices. Somebody tells her, it's, I don't know, $20. And she says, oh, why is it $20? I always buy this every week. Why is it now $20? Yeah, it's more now. Okay. Well, then I have to give something back. And so she had to give, she had to give some bread back and some cheese back, etc., in order to be able to buy that stuff, because she only had that amount of cash on her hand. So these situations we have here a lot. I don't think that we are particularly bad compared to other nations in Europe. I think that they will be hit stronger, probably. But at the lower levels of society, the pain will be very, very big in the next couple of months, I'm pretty sure.
It's not just Germany. I've been in Greece for 4 weeks over the summer, and I've met with comrades and friends there as well. And one actually also from a political background, he told me that he got a new electricity bill, and he has a small flat, like 60 or 70 square meters, and he's supposed to pay €1,000 for 2 months of electricity, and he
which is like $1,000, in translation.
But right? with a living salary that is around 1,000 net per month.
Wow.
So yes. because salaries in Greece are for shit. You wouldn't even imagine.
And here comes in the German state again and offers something really, really nice to everybody who is in this situation. They can now, you know, what normally happens in Germany, if you don't pay your gas bill, I think the same as in every other country, the gas is being turned off for you. You don't get electricity, you don't get gas, you don't get heat. Well, that doesn't happen now anymore. There is a moratorium. You can basically pay the stuff later. So, I don't know, you can't pay now. Debt. You go into horrible debt, and maybe in 6 months you can try to pay that shit off. That has been made possible by our nice state now that takes a lot of care of its citizens.
Stefan is as our man in Europe right now. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you have any questions or statements?
Yeah, I mean, it's true in the UK. I was interested earlier on the fact that in Germany they haven't fixed the gas price yet. In the UK, it was very funny. Like, we had a contest because Boris Johnson resigned, so we had a contest between the two conservative competitors to see who would be the next prime minister. And throughout the whole campaign, Liz Truss denied. She was like, because she was obviously appealing to conservative voters who are all, it's like 100,000 of Britain's worst lunatics. Appealing to them, saying, like, we won't do anything about gas prices. We'll just let the free market do whatever. And then she came into government, and then basically on her second day, she was like, we're going to impose a cap. It basically, so that it's £2,500 on average consumption. It's written. Lots and lots of people are misunderstanding this in Britain and thinking the maximum you can pay is £2,500 a year. Well, that's just average consumption for one person, you know. So it can be much, much, much higher. It's just the gas unit is fixed. But this is still an increase of 100 to 150% since the war started. So obviously, this is meant to solve the problem, and it's really decreased a lot of the public anger and the refusal to pay and everything like this around it. But obviously, we're going to go into winter, and people are going to find that their bills are.
Yeah, I think here there's another dynamic that comes into that makes Germany special, because what you should not forget is that Germany is to a huge part responsible for the rise of the gas prices itself. Right? So Germany is going around and trying to we're talking about an economy. The German economy was, I think, 50% sponsored by Russian oil and gas. Right? So we have to make up for this. So we're going around and we are buying oil wherever we can find it and gas wherever we can find it. That rises prices. And we cannot now, in that situation, at least before we are safe and have our reservoirs full, then limit the prices. We can't do that yet. I do think we will have some kind of conversation like this too, because the left is also preparing this more and more, getting this into the conversation. But right now, I don't see it. I think that will probably happen after the winter. Now we're good. We have the reservoirs full. We paid what we had to pay. By the way, MMT is correct. With money that has been printed out of thin air, it hasn't even been printed. It's just a button press. They are correct in this. They are not correct in other things. So that's what I would say why they haven't been discussing the price cap question yet, because they are the ones driving the prices up right now, and they have to in order to fill up their reservoirs. Right.
Well,
we closed our reservoirs in previous years because they weren't economical, and what crisis would happen that would force us to have gas reservoirs. We don't have any.
Yeah, that sucks.
I was going to say we've gone for a while now. I was wondering if you guys had any final words, if you'd like to wrap it up. What did you say, Andrew?
Oh, I think Germany is supposed to be getting this oil from France next month. So something to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly.
I would ask maybe as a final question to kind of contrast, even if we kind of take what's happening, what Germany's actions are in Ukraine as kind of some kind of liberal humanistic impulse, which obviously we shouldn't, but just go along with it. How, by doing this, it prevents the discussion, the thing that you're talking about, where the Germans have to buy up all the supply they can from everyone that they can, obviously disables them to have any kind of liberal humanist impulses towards any other state. So if we see kind of a renewed Saudi offensive in Yemen, if we see what could be like an Armenian genocide, which is basically being offered by the Azeri state in the next coming weeks.
Actually, we are also getting gas from Azerbaijan, and this is also something that is in the
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I mean.
But that's
oil,
our
sorry,
kind of
not gas,
genocide.
oil.
That's our kind of genocide. We're cool with that. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Will there be any reaction, do you think, from Europe in the case of Azerbaijan doing the same thing that Russia are doing?
Well, it depends in this case because the US is trying to get in a little bit. You know, Pelosi was there last week, and she's making like a little bit of Russia is not here, so I'm stepping in and doing something thing. You know, so it depends a little bit how this goes. If the US is involved in this, I don't think that there will be a huge shift away from Russia by Armenia. But if something happens there, then that could change. As of now, even though Azerbaijan is like 3 to 5%, someone told me, of our oil needs, so it's not much. But in a situation where you're looking for scraps everywhere anyway, you don't want to lose that too. So I don't think that will change their military or supporting policies towards Azerbaijan or Armenia greatly. When it comes to Saudi Arabia, I mean they're good friends anyway. Ultimately, this euphemism of it's not a euphemism. It's actually just wrong to speak of a dependency towards Russia that we had there, right? Now Merkel is being attacked by all the left-wing humanists. Look, Merkel, you brought us this dependency of Russian oil. It was not dependency, guys. We profited from this shit. We got such cheap oil. This is how we survive. This is how we build our nation now, right? So this is not a dependency. Unless you talk about everything on the capitalist market as a dependency, like if Daniel buys my chair, he gives me money, I give him my chair. Yeah, Daniel was dependent on me.
You never paid for that chair. Don't use that example.
But that's not how that goes, right? So I think ultimately Russia is a big deal because there was a lot of cooperations, and I think there was also a lot of hope from the German state that there could be even future collaborations. And I think that until the very last moment, you can see this even in Olaf Scholz's efforts right before the war to go to Russia, speak to Putin. Even during the war, go to Russia, speak to Putin. They wanted to solve this in a good manner, but no, the stones were set in this case. Russia decided to go that way. US decided to go the other way. And that's the reality that Germany has to adapt to.
Abdul, do you want to add any other questions?
Well, actually, I just really wanted to get in your business as far as the environmental issues are. I'm glad we won't have to be sending you coats. You guys are prepared. We might need them if anything goes wrong in the South in the U.S. So.
Yeah. How's it like? Maybe just one interest of mine. Like, how is that hitting you? I mean, the rise of gas prices is also a global thing. It will hit you too. I mean, although you are you're energy sufficient, but the speculation should hit you too in some way. No, inflation is also high.
Prices have gone up in the United States, but they flattened out due to some policy procedures that were taken over by the administration. Biden, I don't know if we should thank Biden, but he did. There was a tactic that was done by the administration that was able to flatten out the worst of the increase in the prices. So prices actually went down a little bit, not compared to where they were before, when they decreased a bit.
Right.
But on that note, we're coming up on 2 hours now, and this was a great show. I learned so much from you guys. The conversation was rich. I can tell you guys were animated to be here and to share with us.
Always.
Jason and Gina were here. We've got to do this again. I hope you guys, Stefan and M. Tucson, realize why we love our brothers here from 99 ZU EINS in Germany, because they always bring on the good content.
Thank you,
Definitely.
sir. We love
Thank
you
you.
guys. I listen to you. I listen to you every day. I swear to God. Like I'm going through your
Oh wow,
podcast
I
all the
appreciate
time.
that, man. You really
I love
touched me
you.
when you said that, brother. You really touched me when you said that.
Pascal, I also heard that you were sick a couple of months ago, and I really hope that you get better soon.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
All the best,
Thank you
man.
so much.
No, it's nice to like to move on from fanboy to guest.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, now in guest territory. Guest territory. Any other questions, you guys? Stefan, Burton, M. Toussaint? M. Toussaint, you want
Also,
to
I have
lead us out with the final words?
the final
also,
words
just one thing, Stefan
Oh,
and Mtusan.
mhm.
I never talked to you before, but it was also great
Yeah, it was.
discussing with you. Thanks for that.
I love the
Awesome.
the vibe. Always when we work together, there's like a really great vibe. It's so much fun every time. It's never a hassle.
Agree.
It's always fun.
Yes.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. All right. Thanks for being on, and we are out. Where's the outro?